Back to our conversation here on containers here in studio. It's quite interesting how containers are being changed and moved into homes and office spaces and other areas. Grace, before we went on break, you were explaining to me the different aspects and challenges that you have as an interior designer.
Yes.
Nevertheless, we began by saying this is not a new concept. It's been there, but somehow it's new here in Kenya.
It's relatively new here in
What
Kenya.
are the challenges that you're facing perhaps with this unique segment or within the real estate?
I think the biggest challenge is also getting professionals in the field, but then again, having to convince a client that container home is actually a good option. Like I can give you a story. Sometime last year, I had a client who came to the yard and I was taking him through the containers and projects and all that. After taking him through, he said, nifanye kazi alafu nikuje niishi kwa nyumba ya mabati. Mimi siwezi ishi kwa nyumba ya mabati. Now, for him, he's comparing containers to nyumba ya mabati, which isn't really the case.
Right.
They're two different things, completely different.
Right.
So we have the challenge of convincing clients that container homes or using a container is actually a good thing.
Are most of your, this is a guess, are most of your clients younger people because they're more open to the idea of I can have my office space in a container and still make it look amazing?
It's actually between middle class to the older guys.
Right.
Mainly because they have traveled, they have seen container homes.
Yes, sir.
They are embracing the whole idea. Youths are still trying and struggling to embrace container homes, mainly because they have a notion that they need to build a very big house out of brick and mortar, and that's the achievement, which really isn't the case. Yes.
All right, so Kelvin, as an architect, perhaps I would also love to hear your thoughts on this. Electricity, water pipes for water. How does one begin to perhaps put this into play with a container house?
One, I would say for us, having done this for quite some time, it's almost second to nature. It's very natural for us. Those are the same questions here we get from clients, right? A client walks into the yard, they want a container house. The biggest issue is how are we going to do the wiring? How are we going to do the plumbing, for example? But the container house comes complete with all that. We do the wiring, we do the plumbing, we even do civil works for some of the clients. We don't have guys to do. We get the team on how to prepare the ground, for example, before we deliver the container. But it's I would say it's basic. Right. It's basic piping, basic wiring. You know. We also are working on a concept where we're going to do solar powering. You know, we want to go green as well.
Yes.
It's a new concept we are still working on. We already have some clients who are interested in the concept.
Right.
But we give you a container house complete with its own solar power, you know, solar panels and batteries and all that stuff. You can basically place it anywhere in the middle of nowhere and run on solar, all that stuff.
And you don't have to worry about riparian land.
You don't.
Okay. All right. So on break, Kelvin was sharing with me something interesting. Just like perhaps your house or your book where you need documents to show ownership, it's the same thing with containers. So Kelvin, demystify that for us. I just can't go grab a container and say this is mine. How do I go about that process? You say there are certain documents that show that...
Containers are containers. Just like another property, another asset,
right?
You need to have proof of ownership, right?
Containers are now assets.
It's an asset.
Okay.
A container is like your car. I mean, if you're converting to a house, it's an asset, right?
Right.
Yes.
So you need, like with any other asset, if you go to buy a phone from a shop, they give you a receipt to show that it's actually your phone. The same thing with a container, like you do the car. Every container has its own logbook.
So when you get a container, make sure you also have a logbook.
Yes, or so-called, in some quarters, it's called an interchange. You know?
Why is that important?
This shows that all containers belong to the shipping lines, right? So if you buy a container from a shipping line, they need to show that they transfer the container from themselves to you. In this case, to us, because we are the retailers, right? So for every container that we purchase from the shipping lines, who are suppliers basically, they give us an interchange or a logbook.
And where do I get this logbook from? The shipping company?
You actually get from us because the shipping lines actually have the interchanges with our name.
Right.
So on top of having the interchange, you get a sales agreement from us to show that we have actually sold the container to you. Without that, someone can come and claim the container, say it's theirs, when it actually isn't.
Actually,
all right.
We've had cases where guys have been duped into buying stolen containers because one, they think they're getting better deals because they're much cheaper. But the problem is, one, every container is tracked, just like with a car, and you need to prove beyond doubt that the container actually belongs to you. So if I come to you, you have a container, and you don't have documentation for it.
All right, so we're getting a lot of your feedback and questions online, tweeting us at KTN News at @Zinzi_K. Let me begin, Kelvin, with your own namesake, Kelvin. Sure. He has tweeted and he's asking two questions. One, what are the charges of a container?
That depends. We have several price levels for different units.
E.g., give us one or two.
For example, the guys want just empty containers.
Yeah.
Maybe to go and store their stuff.
Yeah.
We retail them for about between 200 to 20,000. That's for a 20-foot container, depending on the quality of the container.
Right.
For 40-foot containers, we retail for between 320 to even 340,000. Sorry.
Okay.
Again, depending on the quality of the container.
Okay.
You have some really beat-up containers. We also have some relatively new containers. So the price may range a bit.
But for a container that now been changed into a home or an office space, that's a different ball game.
That's a different ball game, ma'am.
Okay.
Again, that price depends on the kind of finishings you want.
So Grace is one who determine.
We basically work with the clients.
Work
with the client's budget. For example, if you can afford a 1 million container house, there's no need for me to give you a 800,000 one.
Okay, so still, Kelvin, his second question.
Sure.
For someone who is interested and can't afford the total amount at once, is there a financing program in the picture? I'm guessing perhaps he's asking about paying in installments?
Yeah, we have arrangements with the clients whereby we tell them if you cannot afford the container the full container cost at once, you can pay in installments, but you only release the container to you once you've done the final payment.
Wow. It can be like a mortgage where I just can pay
that's for
and
empty
still live in the
containers.
house.
That's for empty containers.
That's for empty containers.
Yes. Now for containers that have been fabricated or converted into housing units, maybe shops or wherever.
Right.
We allow installments. You pay this much, you start the work, pay this much. But again, even before the container leaves our yard, because you don't want to run after customers and we lost money like that. We've had to learn the hard way.
Right.
So to say.
Okay, so JMO, and perhaps Grace, as the designer, interior designer, you can help us understand this one. He's asking, can you guys do a swimming pool from about 20-feet container, and the cost of that? So for him, it's about changing a container into a swimming pool. I mean, wow, this is mind-blowing. Okay.
It's actually a need we are starting to get.
Of having containers into swimming pools?
Yes, we're having clients who want us to embrace that market. We haven't really tried it yet, but we're working towards it. Maybe once we do it, we'll have a showcase of a piece for them to actually see. But at the moment, we haven't really started doing it. Yes.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
It's doable. It's very,
actually
very
doable.
But I haven't seen swimming pools. I've seen the homes. And is it safe?
It is.
Yeah, a container is a very strong structure.
And in terms of diving, because you see, then again, the space is limited.
You have 9 feet height.
For example, a 20-foot container is 8.6 foot high. So depending on the depth of the container, maybe if it's a swimming pool, depending on the depth the customer wants, you can't just cut it up there to retain most of his structure.
But based on the research, because I've done a little bit of research on the same, you have people who feel the 9 feet depth is too much. So you can reduce the container actually.
It's too much for a swimming pool?
Yes, it's too deep. Wow. So you can actually reduce the depth of the container by cutting the top bit of it. But you have others who are okay with the 9 feet. It's actually being done, not in Kenya, but it's actually being done. Yes.
So I think at some point that Kenyans will fully embrace this new concept of containers?
Actually at the moment it is. People are actually embracing it. Just to add on to what he can't afford it in full, I have come up with a way of advising clients, because I also do consultancy, on how to do it in bits. You don't have to buy everything at once and do everything at once. When you get a professional, you can actually have the professional guide you on what comes first, what is very important first, to the next step and the third step. Since you don't have a mortgage plan, it's best if you work with someone who understands how the steps flow. So when you get a professional interior designer, they'll guide you from the design step, which is the very important step in the whole thing. After the design, now based on how much you can afford, They'll guide you on what comes first. You'll have to deal with a number of things like heat until you can get money, because you can insulation and padding covers the major bit of the whole quotation.
Is that the most expensive part of it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
So you will start maybe by buying the containers, have the containers at your place as you figure out what to do. So when you're buying containers, you work on your ground. Have the containers sit on the ground. Then gather your funds. Once you gather your funds, you now move to the structure. You move to cutting the containers, you move to frameworks, you move to doors, windows, and all that.
So that's where you guys come in and help your clients do that.
So it's a process, actually. I offer consultancy. It's a process I can take you through from the design step to the end results.
If money is not an issue, how long does such a process take?
If you're joining 2 or more containers, that means some of the works you'll have to do on site. It will take about 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Yes, if you're joining 2 or 3 or 4 containers. But if it's just 1 container, 14 to 21 days you're done.
Should be
Okay.
enough, yeah.
Okay. That's like about a month.
It's a month, actually.
Okay.
Then on the structural bit of the container fabrication, most people worry that containers are, very feeble structures. Even on top of the container strength on its own, because like I said, a container is a very strong structure. We also do steel strengthening on the inside.
Still strengthening on the inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's to add the strength and the, the comfort and the durability of the container.
Okay.
Then like with any other house, like with the normal stone house, you need to do regular, repairs and touch-ups and maintenance.
Yes.
Maybe coats of paint and all that stuff.
Okay.
Just like you do with your normal house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kelvin, Grace mentioned the fact that you can attach 2 or 3 different containers. You can have an entire house with different floors. How does that happen?
Now, like I said, talking about it sounds very natural to me.
Yeah. Help me understand, because I'm guessing, are you stacking up container on top of a container?
Yeah.
Yes,
we do. So what we do, basically what determines the size of the house is, one, what the customer wants.
Right.
The guys want bungalows, maybe. You want a mansionette, for example.
A mansionette with containers.
Yeah, just
that's a thing.
It's a thing. So the thing is, depending on what the customer wants, that's the biggest guide on to what you're going to make for the customer. What they would really want. Secondly, their budget, like I said, and their space of land. We've done, for big houses, for example, we need to join more than a single container. Like she said, most of the work will be done from site now. The cutting, the cut-ups, and the strengthening, the welding up and stuff. So we come to site, place the containers on the ground. Then, according to the design she did with you, be the client, right? Now we do the cut-ups and all that stuff, and the strengthening, and the insulation, and the wiring, and the plumbing, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's very doable.
It's very doable. Chris, before you jump in, still, you said before even coming with your budget, come with your plan. Does that mean that as the customer, I should have come up with what do we call it, a floor plan of how I want the house to look like?
Not necessarily. The guys who come to us, we take them from the beginning.
From the get-go.
They tell you now,
because
give
you
me what
have
you
a design team.
Because you have a design team as well.
When you get a design team, actually, what I think he meant by that is every client knows what they want.
Yeah.
Every client has a picture of what they want. So they come to you, voice what they need, and as a design team, sit down with you. We guide you through. Sometimes you might come with a plan that is not applicable in a container home. So we help you through. Because another thing that he might have forgotten to mention, cut up containers too much. Sometimes you also need, when you choose the wrong containers, let's start from choosing the wrong containers. When you choose the wrong containers, and then you have a poor design, you'll end up cutting the whole container. That affects the structure of the container, the integrity of the container.
When you say choose the wrong container, are there types of containers?
Yes, there are. You have high cube and low cube. You have 40 feet that has a channel on top and others that don't have a channel. So when you're choosing a container, you actually need to understand the design first. How much are you going to cut? If you can avoid cutting so much, good for you. But if you can't, you need to know how much you're going to cut and exactly where you're going to strengthen. Because at the end of the day, when you strengthen so much, it beats a container home being affordable. Because you'll need to buy a lot of metals, and it is not just a 1x1 or a 2x1.
At the end of the day, are container homes more affordable than having to go buy a house?
That depends.
But that depends. And don't you think at some point with popularity gaining momentum, that at some point a stone house will be, you find a container house more expensive on the market compared to A stone house? Do you foresee that happening?
Yes, but beauty of a container home is, as I said, you can do it in stages. If you have the right person guiding you through, they'll actually design a design that you can able to convert it. If you, beauty of containers is you can always convert it without actually affecting any other thing or the integrity of the foundation or that. So you can decide to have one floor, then move to the other floor and the third floor. But you need to have the right design so that when you're moving to the second floor, it does not affect the ground floor.
All right, because of time, I'll let Kelvin have the last say. Kelvin, perhaps as an architect, what's so different between designing a home, a traditional home with stone vis-a-vis a container home?
Like she said from the beginning, containers are very limited in terms of space you're working with.
Right.
A container is only 8 foot wide, right? So now the thing is, for strength, because the thing is you want your house to be durable and very safe and very strong, right? So the difference we have is, the only drama we have with containers is the space, because it's very restricting in terms of, so if you need a very big house, we need to join more than 2 containers. You know, that brings on our challenge of designing and structural. Now that's where the real architecture comes in. Right. You know, right. Strengthening the containers, make sure it is really going to withstand the elements, for example. And of course now we have the maintenance, all that stuff. Okay. But it's very, very doable. It's, like I said, it's a very exciting concept. Right. And guys should. You know.
Thank you guys for coming, helping us understand this whole containers. We just see them in Nairobi and a lot of them online, especially on Instagram, but this is a thing that is happening in Kenya. That was Kelvin Cheleng. He's a senior architect as well as one of the directors for Kenya, and Grace Atieno, the an interior designer, just helping us understand this whole new concept. It's not new, but here in Kenya it is new, of container spaces. This is where we close off the show. Thank you so much for your time here on Weekend Express. My name is Zinzi Kibiku. I'll see you for a quick update of fresh stories.